27 verse 1. And okay, this is a very, very powerful story, obviously, and there's a lot going on with this story, so we're starting right in the middle of the portion. Vayhi ki zaken Yitzchak. When Yitzchak was elderly, vatechane einav miros, his eyes, he was unable to see. His eyes dimmed. Vayikras Esav b'nu Agadol. He called his elder son Esav. Vayomer Lav b'ni. He says to my son, Vayomer Lav hineni. And he says, here I am. We all know what's coming because we've all heard this story before. We have to read it with fresh eyes. Pardon the pun. Rashi says his eyes dimmed. Ba'ashnan shel elu shayimashinotu maktirot lavodah zarah. Okay, you have to read the context here. He says the previous verse talks about the fact that Esav took a wife from Yehudit, the daughter of Be'eri the Chiti, and Yitzchak and Rivka were unhappy with that. So now it's telling us, Rashi's connecting that to why Isaac was becoming blind, because these women who were idolatrous, they were making smoke with their offerings, and that made him blind. So, because I guess Rashi's also probably bothered not only about the proximity of the passages, but why doesn't he rebuke? Why is he going to try to bless Esav right after he takes these Hittite women as his wife? Right? So, Davar Achar, alternative way, is that you can't read this passage without crying. When Isaac was bound on the altar, and his father wanted to slaughter him, at that moment, the heavens opened up, and the angels saw what was happening, and they started to cry. And their tears fell down and fell on his eyes. Therefore his eyes grew dim. Okay, so this is such a spiritual, this is so poetic. Our rabbis talk like this, so poetic, that the tears of the angels fell into the eyes of Isaac. I remember hearing this when I was in third grade and being moved, and I read it when I'm 49 and I'm moved. And the idea is, first of all, on a simple level, the angels were crying at what they saw. But I think on a deeper level, the rabbis are saying that passage, that incident with the binding of Isaac scarred him for life. That how could heaven do this to him? That the heavens scarred him. I don't know. It's a very moving passage that they were crying also. And of course, it says the third approach is Kidei Sheyito Yaakov as Abrachos. His eyes dimmed because they wanted Jacob to go out to take the blessing. So we need to have this set up. Of course, the literary reading of it is that he lost his sight. Doesn't mean, it's a very big symbolic image in literature that you're blind to what everybody else sees. Yet, Thera, I cut you off.
One of the other things that I had learned was that by saying he was blind to the flaws in Esau, and that's from the proximity of it to Isaac.
For sure, and I agree with you. In my now nearly 30 years in the rabbinate, I've unfortunately had some circumstances, some situations where I've had to tell parents that their children were acting in a way where they needed, let's say, guidance. They were not acting according to the way they were supposed to. And it's almost always the case that parents are blind to the reality of their children. Eventually they often get it, but the parents, I had one room, there was one incident where everybody in the room, there was 25 kids in the room, and they all did something which the parents were obviously very embarrassed about, but every parent said, it was not my kid. It was all the other kids who did it. They all said that to me. So that's, you're blind to your kids' flaws. You're often usually blind to your own flaws. Yeah, Jerry, you had a question.
Yes. Uh, gosh, I've already forgotten the question. I forgot. I'll ask the question when I remember what it was.
Okay,
Sorry.
Jerry, we'll be here. We're patient. Did it have to do with Isaac losing his sight with the angels tearing in his eyes?
Yes, yes. It was Isaac that was slated to be slaughtered.
Yeah.
How does that and so how does the tears of Isaac uh, bother the eyes of Jacob?
No. Let me explain it. The angels cried when they saw Isaac able to be slaughtered, and the tears of the angels fell into Isaac's eyes and made him blind.
But he
And then,
wasn't born. But he wasn't born yet.
yes, he was. Isaac
I,
was born.
I'm sorry. Jacob was not born
Jacob
when.
didn't go blind. Isaac went blind. No. Jerry, you there?
Yes, I am.
Isaac was the one who went blind. Isaac went blind because when he was about to be slaughtered by Abraham, an angel opened up his eyes and cried, and it went into Isaac's eyes and made him blind.
Okay, got it.
Then there's another explanation of Rashi, which says that God made Isaac's eyes go blind so that he wouldn't see in the future when Jacob tried to deceive him in order to get the blessings.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Good.
So now we go to the next verse. Vayomer, and Isaac said, Hinei no zakanti, I'm old. Lo yadati yom moti, I don't know the day of my death. Why doesn't he know the day of my death? Rashi says like this, I'm Rabbi Yeshua ben Karacha. In Magia Adam Perak Avosav, if a parent approaches their parent's age, Yidag Chamesh Shanim Lefneim Chamesh Shanim Lachakein. Most people die around the age that their parents died, either 5 years before, 5 years after. This is true. It's genetics. Most people die around then. You have the genetics. You usually live around the time that your parents. So, but you have two parents. So Yitzchak Haya ben Me'av Esrim Mishalosh. At this point, Isaac was 123 years old. How do we know that he was 123? Because we know Rashi below is going to explain that Jacob was 63 when this event took place, and Isaac was 60 when Jacob was born. So therefore, Isaac is 123, and Sarah died at 127. So Amar Shemel Aparak Imi Ani Magia. Maybe I'm going to become the age of my mother, which is 127. Marini ben Chamesh Shanim Samachupurka. So I'm within 5 years of her death. I don't know the day of my death. I don't know if I'm the day of my mother's death or the day of my father's death. This also shows he was bothered by the trauma of his mother's untimely death. She died prematurely and suddenly. So he was bothered by that too. So he says, okay, now he says to his son Esav, take your utensils, your sword and your bow, go out to the field, and catch some game for me. By the way, I also want to say, this is a very special day. Tomorrow, God willing, I don't know if any of you are in the chat where I post a picture of the Torah. Is any of you? Aviva, I think, is. Tomorrow I'm going to finish my Torah. Oh. It's been working on it for around 10 months, and I'm going to finish it tomorrow. It's a very special day in my life. It's my 6th one. They're like I get very sad when I finish it because I get so close to the Torah that I'm writing. I don't want to leave it. It's time to move on out of the house. Let them move on. Empty nest. Okay. Sana, Lashon Hashchata. It's an expression of sharpening. Ka'osa Sheshanino, like that which we learned. Ein mashchizin es sakin. that you're not supposed to sharpen the knife. But you can sharpen it. You can't do it on a festival. You can't sharpen the knife, but you can sharpen it on another one. Chaded sakincha, sharpen your knife. So okay, so he says, go out into the field. Sana, Rashi says, sharpen. Okay, so that's what sa. That's almost certainly not the literal translation, but that's how Rashi translates it. Tal yacha means your sword. Rashi says, char b'cha, your sword. To derech lotlota, they hung it from the belt. And vitsudo itzayit. There's another example. I know people here always ask about the Kri Uktiv. There's another example where it's written one way and read another way. It's written as Tzeda and it's read as Tzayid. Okay, capture for me some game. Catch the game for me. Rashi says, Min ha-hefker v'lo min ha-gazel. He says, okay, I want you to catch it for me from the ownerless, and not from that which is stolen. Hello there, Eitan. Did you bring somebody special with you?
My parents are with me.
Wow, amazing. All right. We love Eitan and we're so happy you're here. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. That's amazing. That's amazing. So we're in chapter 27 of chapter 27, verse 4. And he said, but we just read that Isaac was worried that Esav was going to take the game from stealing it. So it shows that he is not the completely blind to his son's faults. He says, make for me delicious food, like I love. Bring it to me and I'll eat it. So that your soul will be blessed before I shall die. Rashi says nothing. And I was always bothered by this verse. It always bothered me. It makes it sound to me like Isaac, is susceptible to the temptations of good food. It always makes it, but we would expect more from our patriarch, that he needs a good steak. It always bothered me. It always bothered me, that verse. So the Rivka Shamas, Rivka could hear this. B'daber Yitzchako Esav b'no. Rivka heard that Isaac was speaking to Esav, his son. Notice that it says his son, not her son. But yes, let me finish the verse. Vayeloch Esav hasadeh latzutzai lavi. And Esav went out to the field to trap some game and to bring it. Yes, Jerry.
There are many references to the idea that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob knew the Torah before it was even given. So how could Isaac ask for a non-kosher, going out and killing with a bow and arrow an animal to eat, which isn't slaughtered correctly?
Well, he says to him, right, it's a good question. If you're capturing, but he says, take your sword and your bow, but he doesn't say he's going to, first of all, he can't injure it, because if you injure the animal, it's not kosher. But the Talmud does say that you can do slaughter with a bow. If you're very precise with your shooting of your arrow, it's possible to sever the trachea and the esophagus at the exact right spot. So he could be such an expert and do it that way. Okay. But the Talmud does say that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob kept the whole Torah even before it was given. So Jerry is correct about that. So he says, so he sends him out, and Rivka heard this. To catch the game and to bring it. Maulavi, what does it mean to bring? Hello there, Ira. And William Tzatzayid, if he doesn't find it, Yavi min hagezel, he's going to bring from that which is stolen. Pasuk Zayin. Pasuk Zayin, and it says, Lefnei Hashem. What does it mean? In Pasuk Zayin, it says, Avila. So Rivka Amra al Yaakov b'na. Rivka says, Pasuk Vav, Rivka says to Jacob her son, Lamor, Hine shamati es avicha. I heard your father medabero Esav achicha. Speak to Esav your brother, saying, Avio itzayid, bring to me some game. Vasoli matamim, vaseli matamim, and make me delicacies. V'ochel, and I'll eat it. Va'avarechacha lefnei Hashem lefnei Musi, and I will bless you before God before I die. Rashi says, lefnei Hashem bershuto, with permission. Sheyaskim al yadi, you should agree to what I'm doing. You should agree to what I'm doing. We have time for one more verse or two more verses. Now, my son, listen to my voice, to that which I'm going to command you. Rivka is telling. Last pasuk, then we'll stop. Go to the sheep. Take for me from there 2 goats. And I'll make for them delicacies for your father, just like you love. What does it mean? Rashi says, they are mine. And they are not stolen. So that's what Yitzchak wrote in her ksuba. We told take 2 goats every day. So basically, Rebecca was not stealing. She's saying, these are mine. Take these. I'm entitled to 2 goats every day. Rashi then says something beautiful. He doesn't want the domesticated sheep. He said, go out and catch me some game. That's a deer. It was Passover. One was going to be his Paschal lamb, and one he was going to make a delicacy. So that's interesting. Basically, Isaac wants to connect this whole incident to Pesach. Meaning Pesach is a redemption. That it's a redemptive moment for Jacob, redemptive moment for the Jewish people. But it's a very strange that, so Rashi tells us, Kitama Gedi, Kitama Tzvi. The sheep tastes just like deer. Has anybody here ever had the venison?
Yeah.
And have you ever had the sheep? But maybe we had sheep, of course, right? But so maybe when you put the right spice on it, they both taste the same if you drown them in ketchup. All right, let's stop the davening here, and let's stop the recording, and let's stop learning.